In 1977, a small factory in Colvin, Leicester got to work on something that would change the lives of countless people. Little did they realise that people were still caring enough 40 years later to sit and listen to a guy waffle on about that product. This is the Blue Harvest Star Wars Toy Podcast. Hello again, and welcome to episode 2 of the Blue Harvest Star Wars Toy Podcast. I am your host, Darth Mark, and on today's show, we're going to be looking at the Star Wars Tracker. I'm going to be talking about the world of collecting, and in the news, we have a Toys R Us update, Hakes, and a bit of Lego news.
The Star Wars Tracker Report.
So if you're a long-time listener to my podcast, to the TSW Toy Box, you know where I always like to big up the Star Wars Tracker. I do believe it's an essential piece of kit for any collector of the Star Wars figures. It's not just the loose figures, the mocks, the vehicles, all different aspects of the vintage Star Wars collecting. Just let me begin by saying I'm not paid. It's not a paid sponsorship or anything like that. As I said last week, I did get in touch with Jared and asked him if he wanted me to carry on talking about the Star Wars Tracker and the weekly reports that he emails you if you're signed up for the tracker. It's $30 a year. I've got a code if you want $5 off that, so it's $25, which is about £19. So when you go to pay, just put in TSW-25.
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out.
And not only do you find the prices for everything vintage, but you can also put your own figures in there and keep a track of where your collection is at the moment. You can put your own valuations in, but it does run a valuation too, so you can see how much your collection is worth at the moment. It's good. You can go pretty in depth actually with it, a lot more in depth than you used to be able to. You can put the CO in, you can put the grade in if it's graded, and you can also put the condition of the figure in as well. So I do believe it's an invaluable source for any collector. As I say, I'm not paid. I'm just bigging it up because I use it. Anything on this podcast that I talk about is something that I'd use. I don't get paid. I don't do this for money or anything like that. I do it for the love of collecting. So on to the tracker report and Jared's little note this week. The volume of prices harvested this week is helped by the latest Vectis auction in the UK. It doesn't do the Hanson's one that we talked about last week. That would have put the Boba Fett's a bit up higher a bit, and all the other things that those sold at Hanson's. But although not as many Star Wars items in this one, we note that there was a tri-logo yak face mock and a reasonably priced vinyl clay Jawa cape slightly damaged. On the topic of specialised auctions, the latest Hawks.com, which I'll be talking about later instalment, is underway with a little over a week to go. One of the main highlights of the prototype Rocket Firing Boba Fett, again I will be talking about that, and the Meccano vinyl cape Jawa mock. Until next time, happy collecting, Jared. So that gives you a little idea what's been happening this week. There's lots of stats. I'm not going to go into all the stats on this podcast because it's a load of numbers. I will just go through some of the things that was sold this week. I'll start off with the top 5 loose figures. Number 5, we have the vinyl cape Jawa. It's Kenner, and it was sold in the United Kingdom for £421. Number 4 is Squidhead, a Lily Lady, sold in Spain for £430. Number 3, we have a tri-logo variant of the Boba Fett, UKG 85, Kenner, sold in the United Kingdom for £511. Number 2, we have a Darth Vader UKG 90, a POC, sold in the United Kingdom for £545. But number 1, we have the Blue Snaggletooth No Dent AFA 85, which was a Kenner, sold in the United States for $876. On to the top 5 accessories now. At number 5, we have a Palatoy Return of the Jedi A tri-logo box, size noodles on the Max Rebo band, sold in the United Kingdom for £170. At number 4, we have a Kenner loose Imperial Shuttle, which is something I'm on the lookout for. Sold in the United States for $260. At number 3, we have another Imperial Shuttle, This time a Kenner Return of the Jedi A Emperor Arrival Scene, sold in the United States for $346. Number 2, we have a 12-inch Han Solo, a Kenner Star Wars A picture box, sold in the United States for $900. And at number 1, we have the IG-88 12-inch, very rare. Empire Strikes Back A, only one known version of this packaging, and that sold for $1,000. So on to the top 5 mock figures now. And at number 5, we have a cloth cape Jawa AFA85 Kenner Star Wars 12C, sold in the United States for $1,285. At number 4, we have Ben Obi-Wan Kenobi white hair Kenner Star Wars 12C, sold in the United Kingdom for £1,054. At number 3, another Ben Kenobi white hair AFA80. It's Kenner Star Wars 12A, so you can't get better than that. Sold in the United States for $1,476. Number 2, Yak Face Palatoy Return of the Jedi 70D, sold in the United Kingdom for £1,612. And at number 1, we have Darth Vader AFA85 Kenner Star Wars 12A, sold in the United States for $3,250, which is a bargain. So there you go, that's your Star Wars tracker for this week. Again, that code for $5 off is TSW-25.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna throw me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her.
So for my main topic this week, I'm going to be talking about why we collect. I've stumbled upon this article. It's from the Dallas Observer, so it is from a American point of view. Some of the references might be a bit obscure and that we don't know about over here, but it's an interesting article, and I'm going to let my droid read it for you now. It's entitled Dallas Toy Story Inside the World of Collecting.
Why do people collect things? Records, concert tickets, stamps and even toys can easily fall into the category of clutter in a world of cloud technology, celebrated minimalism and the ever-advancing strategies to simplify one's life. Why have a record collection 500 units deep when you can simply keep all of your favorite albums at the touch of a smartphone screen? The answer to this question may be primal, with human beings' instincts to collect assets going back as far as the Stone Age, when amassing food and tools were important for survival. Dr. David Henderson, a psychiatrist and owner of the Four Stones Collaborative Group, which specializes in mental health and wellness practice, believes collecting objects to be a thoroughly human attribute. Humans have collected since the dawn of time, he says. Our tendency to forget leads us to seek out tokens or memorials of experiences that have had a significant impact on our lives. There is a nostalgia to it, a psychological connection to persons, places, activities or events from our past that brought us great joy, safety and/or identity. Fast forward several millennia to 2019 and the practice of collecting objects may be at a precipice. TV series like Hoarders and Slobby's World illustrate the thin line between collecting and straight-up insanity. In 2017, Netflix released a short series called The Toys That Made Us, featuring stories, interviews and a veritable time warp back to the golden age of toy production when companies like Hasbro, Mattel and Kenner made huge profits producing some of the coolest toys to ever hit the market. G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Barbie and Star Wars figures were on just about every kid's Christmas list in the 80s, and the brands produced an impressive arsenal of figurines, vehicles, playthings and accessories kids were dying to have. 35 years later, the toys that survived decades of play have lived on to fulfill collectors' hearts as nostalgic idols of simpler times. People collect toys to either rebuy what they had as a kid, or to get the toys they always wanted and couldn't get their parents to buy them, says Sean Nenest, owner of the well-stocked vintage toy superstore, Dallas Vintage Toys. They simply don't make toys like they used to and they never will. The 1970s and 1980s were the golden age of the toy industry. Ninast has been in the collectibles business since the wee age of 7, selling sports cards from a stand he set up in his parents' front yard while most kids in the neighborhood sold lemonade. After graduating college and finding the finance world a bore, he opened Dallas Vintage Toys in 2009 and has made a career out of knowing which weapon belongs to who in a box of what most would call garage sale rubbish. Ninast always gives one piece of advice for any collector getting into the hobby: always collect what you like. Take your time and enjoy it, otherwise you will burn out. Star Wars toys are Ninast's passion. With Disney's new Star Wars movie due out this Christmas, the demand for Star Wars collectibles is now multi-generational and bigger than ever. This summer sees Hasbro re-release a limited amount of retro Star Wars figures exclusively available through Target. Upon their initial release, the company's website sold out of the figures immediately. On the second day, Target pulled all of the products because they couldn't meet demand. The figures are now selling for 3 times the sticker price in the secondary market. Popular culture now celebrates what some may refer to as nerd culture in ways that can be liberating for some and frustrating for others. Collecting miniature figurines was not always as socially acceptable as it is today, says Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital physician Dr. Stephen Vu. I started collecting Star Wars re-releases in 1996, Vu says. A friend in college collected too, and we kept it hidden from everybody. After the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin came out, all of a sudden it became cool. Then when I was in residency at Presbyterian Dallas, I started to collect vintage and bought my first serious vintage piece. My wife was cool with it too. She puts up with it. Dr. Vu is one of many regular faces in Dallas' rich and diverse collector community. Over the last few years, several other specialty shops including The Lost Toys, Holocron Toys, Piranha Vintage and Retro Madness have opened brick-and-mortar stores or websites selling collectibles. While mainstays like DVT and Duncanville Bookstore have anchored the community for over a decade. There are Facebook groups, email lists and even private meet-up groups for the high rollers. These elite collectors buy prototypes, ultra-limited releases and even movie props when offered up. Some of these items fetch a price within the range of a luxury SUV. At the end of the day for most though, it's all about the toys. I just think collecting toys is good because it's relaxing, says avid collector and toy community staple Trevor Duke. Action figures put me at ease, and I just don't see myself collecting anything else. As Henderson suggests, it's the connection to a special time or place that makes these collections so important to collectors. Henry Velasquez, the manager of Dallas Vintage Toys, has worked in the business over the last 5 years and has seen the niche toy industry grow dramatically with subsequent releases of the DC, Marvel and Star Wars movie franchises. I've never seen anyone walk out of here and say, I'm done. It's an endless cycle, and when people run out of space, they start all over again, Velasquez says of his clientele. There is also that thrill of knowing it's never going to end. Whether it's limited edition action figures, art or belly button lint that people collect now, they will probably be collecting it through the end of time. For the avid collector, Henderson says, the continued searching out of new items for the growing menagerie feeds a longing I think we all have had at some point in our lives, to know that this world still holds hidden treasures. If only we search long and hard enough.
So I think you'll agree with me. A very good article there. I had to let you listen to that because I really do agree with a lot of points put in there. And it was they were interviewing collectors, which is always good. And they go through I have 5 main reasons why I collect and what to keep in mind when you're collecting. It's my how to collect really. I will go through them more in depth in another podcast. But it's basically what they said there. Just be patient, enjoy what you're doing. Don't break the bank, don't max that credit card out. Research, always research. Research before you start collecting really. Actually start collecting the books before you start collecting the figures. So you know what you're collecting. And look on websites like Imperial Gunnery so you don't get ripped off with repro fakes. It's it's difficult, even if you do know your layer blasters, your Imperial blasters, you have to be so careful. You're looking at the listings on eBay. Half the time they don't tell you if they're repro or not. You've got to look at the pictures, and the pictures are not the best quality. So you're buying them, and they're coming, and they're fake. You just got to be so careful. I would, as starting off, stay away from eBay. It's so tempting to go on eBay and just buy everything on eBay. Get out there. Go to car boat fairs. Go to toy fairs. Just go and get out there. Go to vintage shops. I wanted to make a book about all the vintage shops that you can go to in the country. I'm still thinking about that. I went to one last week in Dewsbury. I put a video up about him and the things that I got last week from him. He's East Dewsbury, West Yorkshire. OK Comics he's called, and I've known him for 18 years. He's been trading now in Dewsbury. Started on the market stalls. I used to go every Sunday morning. I used to go down with my son. We used to buy Transformers for him because my son loved Transformers, and it's the only reason I go back to Dewsbury these days. It's not a thriving town by any means, but he does kind of survive there. I think he'll be better somewhere else, to be honest with you. He's on Facebook, OK Comics. So if you're in the area, just pop in there. He has got so many wonderful things. Not as much vintage now because I bought a lot of it. I will keep popping in and seeing what he's got. But there are plenty of vintage shops out there. It's just a matter of finding them. I know the old Leicester toy shop. I might be popping down there and have a look down there very soon. Blackpool's also a good place. There's about 3 or 4 shops in one little area that sell vintage. And there are also the toy museums dotted around the country. Again, this is something I'm going to be talking about in another podcast, more in depth. And as I say, I would like to write a book as a guide to all the vintage shops around the country. So back to that article. And I think the main thing they brought up is why we collect. And it's nostalgia. It's having that feeling of opening that, for me, the first Darth Vader. I would love a card of Darth Vader. I'm still on the lookout for one. That I'd got the Boba Fett because it's a Palatoy Boba Fett. I would like a Palatoy. I would like anything Palatoy, to be honest with you. I'm after the Palatoy Death Star. I'd love that. But to have that Palatoy Darth Vader carded and just have it in my hand and have that feeling of when I had back in 1979-ish, 78, 79, whenever I got it. It just takes you back. It's not about the playing, it's about having it and knowing it's there, and it's keeping it safe, keeping your history safe. At the end of the day, you've got listed buildings to keep history safe. These figures should be listed. We should have a national toy museum, a national toy history museum, really. Something like Steve Sansweet's gaff over in San Francisco. I know that he's made the Toys Be With Us that moves around the country, but we want a static national toy history museum with a dedicated Star Wars section, please. And that piece of music means we're on to the news.
A rare Rocket Firing Boba Fett figure could become the world's first 6-figure Star Wars toy when it goes up for auction at Hakes Americana this month. The unreleased prototype toy is regarded as the holy grail of Star Wars action figures, and is estimated to sell for $75,000 to $100,000 in the online sale, which ends on the 11th of July. Intergalactic bounty hunter Boba Fett is one of the most popular characters in the Star Wars franchise amongst fans, despite being a relatively minor character in the overall story. He first appeared in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, and his tie-in action figure made its debut on the Kenner booth at the 1979 Toy Fair in New York. It was initially advertised that same year as a free mail-away figure, offered to customers who bought 4 Star Wars figures and sent their proof of purchase labels to the manufacturer. The advert showed the figure with a rocket-firing jetpack, and although kids had no idea who the character was yet, as The Empire Strikes Back was still months away from release, they already knew he looked pretty cool. However, Kenner quickly realized that the figure's spring-loaded firing rocket was potentially dangerous, and could end up potentially choking or blinding an unfortunate child. When the figures were eventually released, all the firing rockets had been firmly fixed into place, leaving Kenner's lawyers relieved but countless kids disappointed. Throughout the design process, it's believed that less than 100 prototype rocket-firing Boba Fett figures were produced, and the majority of those were destroyed. A handful, perhaps less than 40, are known to have survived, having been saved by former Kenner employees, and today they are perhaps the most sought-after Star Wars toys in existence. These unpainted prototypes fall roughly into two categories, L slot and J slot, depending on the shape of the rocket firing mechanism on their back. The figure for sale at Hakes is an earlier L slot prototype figure, and has been graded AFA 85nm+, which places it as one of the finest examples in the entire hobby. The experts at Hakes Americana are no strangers to the rare figure, as in March 2018 an example also graded AFA 85 sold for a world record $86,383 as part of the Russell Branton collection. That sale made headlines around the world, and now it seems another rocket-firing Boba Fett could go one step further and break the $100,000 mark. The current talk is that this is now a six-figure piece, said Alex Winter, president at Hakes Auctions. That remains to be seen, but it's sure to be a contender for the top seller in our July sale.
So I'm sure we're all going to be bidding on that one. I'll keep an eye on it and keep you updated, probably on next week's podcast. People do seem to still think it's because of the Battlestar Galactica missile that the kid choked on that these rocket-firing Boba Fetts didn't get produced. It's because they couldn't get it to work, basically. It had been too expensive. That is the main reason that these rocket-firing Boba Fetts were not produced. Not the fact that it was safety. I think they used that as a get-out clause because they couldn't do it. The next piece of news is an article called Toys R Us could fill a retail void, but only after reinvention.
That's according to Bloomberg, which said the retailer's new parent wants to revive the brand online and is eyeing half a dozen smaller format locations in the US, with an emphasis on play. A spokesperson for parent company True Kids Brands, however, told Adweek we aren't in a position to publicly share details on our US strategy at this time. The company has announced a partnership with hobby retailer Hobby Warehouse to bring Toys R Us and its sister brand Babies R Us to New Zealand and Australia with, wait for it, an emphasis on e-commerce and fewer, smaller stores where consumers can try out products. However, consumer nostalgia alone, even among parents who were sad to see a relic of their childhoods go, is not enough to surmount the challenges that brought down Toys R Us to begin with. Simply building another venue does not guarantee consumers will show up. Here's a rundown of some of the obstacles the toy retailer will face in 2019, and what it will have to do to survive if it wants to serve future generations of children. First and foremost, consumers are familiar with the brand's struggles and may perceive Toys R Us to be damaged goods now. Or, as retail expert and consultant Bruce Winder put it, Toys R Us has a brand hangover. As a result, shoppers may be reluctant to buy big-ticket items out of fear it will shut down again and they'll be sold if there are any problems with said items. In addition, the toy industry is a particularly tough racket, which makes a rebirth for Toys R Us, with fewer resources, no marketing and angry suppliers who got stiffed after it filed bankruptcy, seem even less likely, said Sucharita Kodali, vice president and principal analyst at market research firm Forrester. You know what it reminds me of? At the mall, those random pop-ups around Halloween or Christmas, taking advantage of foot traffic that happens to be there, she added. Plus, toy stores are not so commonplace anymore. The market has changed, mass merchants stock toys, kids are into devices with screens and parents are buying experiences in addition to just toys. What's more, Kodali said a significant portion of sales at a store like Toys R Us are seasonal and depend on a hot license. The reason Toys R Us didn't declare bankruptcy a year earlier is Star Wars gave them a lifeline, she said. A hot movie can make one season, but there is not a hot movie every year. And so, beyond these challenges, Toys R Us must truly reinvent itself and invest in something, and the jury is still out on if fewer, smaller locations with play areas is adequate. Analysts concede there is a place in the market for a new toy store, but it would need a really great experience that would have to be way more than what Toys R Us has ever delivered, Kodali said. And then, only then, would Toys R Us have a chance against mass merchants. But that's not to say this is what its investors will do. I don't think the people who have picked up the licensing on the cheap are intending to substantially reinvent the brand, Kodali said. I think they are intending to milk it for its last worth for another season or two without having to be encumbered by the debt. Alan Adamson, co-founder of marketing services firm Metaforce and adjunct associate professor at the NYU Stern School of Business, agreed consumers aren't going to go to a store simply for a commodity. They have to reimagine what retail looks like in 2020, not 2005, Adamson said. They need to start with the online experience and then add retail on top to enhance the experience or add some spice on top. Most retailers started with brick and mortar and added online, now they have to start online and figure out how to add a retail component to add topspin. If Toys R Us, or another toy store, has an advantage, it's that there are parts of the retail experience that are difficult to replicate online, such as bringing joy to children, Winder said. And shopping at a toy store also helps teach kids they have to make choices when they pick the one toy they want most because they can't have everything. What's more, for parents having a tough time deciding what to buy, there's potential to turn toy shopping into more of a consultative experience in which knowledgeable staff help consumers shop. They can create an experience that's more than picking up a commoditized product, which is what Whole Foods is trying to do, he added. In the end, Winder said the playbook may be in replicating toy retailer Theo Schwartz, which was acquired by consumer products company 360 Group from Toys R Us in 2016. Theo Schwartz has long been experimental, but now most of the products it carries are not from big toy vendors but rather private label, Winder said. And, as it turns out, the Theo Schwartz toy collection is now manufactured by none other than its parent 360. What they've done is limit brands like Hasbro and Mattel to 10 to 15%, he said. The rest of the store is their own label. They can source from their own vendors. If I was Toys R Us, I would look at that. In addition, Theo Schwartz has partnered with department stores like Hudson's Bay around the holidays on a win-win for both. The department store wants to stock toys without buying them and the toy store wants space for its toys without leasing it. I think they're doing it right, that is what Toys R Us should be, Winder said. That's an experimental store.
A lot of sense being made there in that article. I talked to Toys R Us a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, about the experience of the store. It hasn't changed since, like I said, 2005. You go in and there's the same music, the same experience, everything like that. They tried to throw things in where there were Lego builds and animals and things like that. But that, yeah, it gets kids in, but it's not a toy thing. Getting animals in, it's not anything to do with toys, is it? You need somebody knowledgeable about toys to, like they say, the parents don't know what to buy. And if there's somebody there that's knowledgeable about toys and they can go and ask, what's this do? What that do? What's the difference between that and that? They're going to go there. They're going to go. It's like you go to Curry's or electronic. I mean, I bought a TV. I didn't know whether to go for the LG or the Samsung. In the end, I went for the Samsung because I'm used to Samsung. But the guy in there, he was pretty knowledgeable. I'd made my mind up. He knew I made my mind up between LG and Samsung because of the apps that are coming out for those TVs. But he helped me out and he was telling me like the differences. I'd read up about it, so I do with everything. I read up about it before I make a decision. It's like collecting the figures, read up about them. But if they've got somebody in the store that's knowledgeable about toys, they're going to go to them. They're going to go to that store. They're not going to go to a store that doesn't know. That's my big bugbear with the old store, Dixon's. They had staff in there that knew nothing about electronics. I'd ask for a say a lead for something or other. Oh, I don't know about that. You know what I mean? It's you're going to go somewhere that's knowledgeable and know their job at the end of the day. Also, the online, they need to make it all online as a first thing. The priority is the online. Make the online really, really good, and then make a few stores, and people can go as well as go on the line online. The Toys R Us website, online website, was shocking. We've only got Smith's now as a toy superstore in this country, and their website is just as bad. Really, you can't really. It's better than Toys R Us. Put it that way. The old Toys R Us website, you can actually go and see if there's stock available in your local store, which is good. I haven't been on for a while, so I can't really talk too much about that. But I will have a look today and see what their website is like these days. I do get emails from them about offers and things like that, so I'll jump on this the website and see what it's like, and I'll report back next week. And finally this week, a bit more Comic-Con news. San Diego Comic-Con, they were getting a couple of Lego Star Wars Tatooine kits. Following June's new Captain Marvel and Batman Comic-Con sets, Lego is back with 2 Tatooine-focused Star Wars builds. Today we're getting the first look at the new creations, both of which journey to Luke's home planet in order to recreate the scenes from A New Hope. Compared to many of the Lego past sets which are released at Comic-Con, the new Star Wars model stands out for a few different reasons. While this year's DC and Marvel releases both assembled display with vignettes, the upcoming creations are more minifigure-centric. First up is Obi-Wan's hut, which is comprised of 200 pieces, and the name plainly suggests this kit recreates Luke's famous encounter with the fallen Jedi Knight. Inside the hut is where Luke first hears Princess Leia's distress signal, a part of the film which makes the appearance in the form of a brand new element, alongside including Luke and Old Ben figures. There's also a Tusken Raider and an R2-D2 figure. Continuing with the Tatooine theme, in the second of today's new Star Wars Lego sets assembles Luke Skywalker's land speeder. The 236-piece build isn't as heavy on minifigures as the other model, but gives us the more detailed brick build release of the land speeder yet. It is, of course, includes Luke, but it also includes C-3PO as well as a Jawa. Both of the creations ditch the typical Comic-Con style box art and collectability. Unlike these other builds we've seen intended for the convention, Lego will not be making today's releases exclusive. Each of the new Star Wars kits will be made available to the public at a later date, and Lego certainly emphasises the later here, as you won't be able to add them to the collection until January the 1st, 2020. Today's releases also carry a more affordable price tag, with both Luke Skywalker's land speeder and Obi-Wan's hut retailing for $29.99 each. So a bit more detailing on the sets themselves. On Obi-Wan's hut, your young Jedi will love this detailed Lego Star Wars TM75270 Obi-Wan's hut model. The hut folds out for easy access and lots of cool items to spark the kids' creativity, including lightsabers, a training remote, a new for January 2020 Princess Leia hologram element to recreate the classic Star Wars A New Hope scene. This set includes the iconic Star Wars characters Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, R2-D2 plus a Tusken Raider for role-playing battles. And Luke Skywalker's land speeder. Young Jedi will love pretending to power across the Tatooine desert in the new for January 2020 collectible Lego Star Wars TM75271 Luke Skywalker's X-34 land speeder model. More detailed than ever before, there's spaces in the space for Luke and the C-3PO minifigure, an opening trunk and micro binocular inside. A clip for Luke Skywalker's blaster rifle to inspire creative play. And kids can reimagine Star Wars A New Hope movie action for the buildable cave hideout for an armed Jawa minifigure. They're going for the kid element there, but I know a lot of adult collectors will be buying these too, even though they have done many land speeder models before. So that'll just about wrap it up for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm trying to get a bit more confident, a bit better each week, and get back to the level that I was on last year. Of course, I always want feedback from you, so if you want to email me, it's blueharvesttoys@gmail.com. If you want to go to my YouTube channel, that is Blue Harvest Vintage. I also have a Teepublic store where you can get t-shirts of this podcast, Star Wars, Red Dead Redemption, all types of things. And of course, if you want extra content from this podcast and my YouTube channel, you go over to Patreon, Blue Harvest. I will put all links up in the show notes, so just check that out there. Next week, I'm going to be doing a giveaway, so listen in for that. I'm doing giveaways at the moment over on YouTube for the Stranger Things Season 3, so check that out too. So until next week, may the toys be with you.